Okay, so back to delegation. This is the second slide. Or this is the first slide, isn't it? I don't know. Anyways, so as a nurse assistant, you really cannot delegate, especially as a nurse assistant student, okay? But the CNA may be in charge of you, and they can delegate tasks to you. RNs can delegate. They can delegate to LPNs or certified nurse assistants. But again, CNA should not be delegating. You can ask someone to help you. That doesn't mean because you can't delegate tasks, you can't tell somebody what to do, that you shouldn't ask for help, because you always should. The National Council of State Boards of Nursing, which is abbreviated NCSBN, describes 4 different steps in the delegation process. And this is coming up in a picture to you. It states that the first phase of delegation is learning how to assess what you need, right? So when you get there for your shift, you need to lay out, okay, this patient is a priority because they have to get this medication at this time because then they're going for a procedure at this time, or something like that. You have to assess and plan out your day, okay? Then once you assess what you need for the day, then you plan it out, then you have to communicate it, right? And then communicate it to your team. And then the next step is surveillance and supervision. So that's where you're actually carrying out the task, and the nurse may observe the care that you give. Once they're comfortable with you doing it after one time, then you should be on your own. And the last step to delegation from the State Board of Nursing is going to be the evaluation and feedback. Did it work? Did you do fine? And so forth. So there are also 5 rights to delegation as well. And this is another way to view the process. So not just the assessment and all the way down to the evaluation, but if you're doing the right task under the right circumstances, the right patient, the right directions and communication, and the right supervision, then you should feel comfortable every single time. So this is basically a diagram here explaining that scenario exactly. So if you get a task to take care of the patient's dentures or something like that, then all of the tasks are split up and should be some equal teamwork, okay? Your role as a CNA in delegation is that you must protect the patient from any harm, okay? You either agree or refuse to do the task. Accepting the task, when you do that, you are agreeing to perform the task. You are then responsible for your own actions, okay? You must complete the task safely, and then you need to report that you did it, okay? So I turned that patient, and then any observations that you made. So if the patient had a bowel movement, okay, and you were in there just to get the patient up to come to the cafeteria for lunch, but the patient had a bowel movement, then you need to report the bowel movement to the staff because it needs to be documented on their system, okay? This is another picture grabbed up from your book explaining the delegation process all the way from the assessment to that follow-up or evaluation tool. Now, I just told you how to accept a task. Now I want to talk to you about refusing a task. If the task is beyond the legal limits of your role, you should definitely refuse the task politely. If the task is not within your job description, if you are not prepared to perform the task, if the task could harm the patient, if the patient's condition has changed, if you do not know how to use the supplies or equipment, my example there was like the automatic blood pressure machine. The first time you don't know how to use it, right? And then if the directions are not ethical or legal, if they're not clear, if they're against agency policies, or they're incomplete. Also, if a nurse is not available for supervision and you want that, then you do not have to do the task either. One thing with delegation though, so I've taught you how to accept the task, refuse the task, but also you should never ignore the order or request to do something. You need to either say, I can go do that, or politely refuse to do the task. So nothing in between, because if you run into that, then you're going to run into negligence and patient abandonment and so forth. So never ignore the requests. You need to respond to them, and you should tell the nurse about the concerns that you have. You must have a sound reason, not just because. You can't just say no. Right? You can't be a toddler and just say, no, I'm not doing that. Okay? You need to give a sound reason for doing that. The new nurse at the beginning, or CNA, will supervise your work, and then they may even ask you questions. And that's not questioning your smartness or anything like that. Do not be insulted by questions. They're just making sure that you have the perfect, clear understanding so that the next time you feel safe doing it on your own. After completing the task, report and record the care given, just as mentioned before. So this is my example here with the blood pressure cuff. This is the nurse showing the CNA how to use the blood pressure machine and maybe the temperature monitor on it and how to use the cuff properly the first time and multiple times if need be. This is the last slide for chapter 4. So this is the problem solving. A nurse delegates a task that you have not done before. What must you do safely to accept the task? Look at my mistype there. What must you safely do to accept the task? So it's something new that you've never done before. But you want to accept it, but what are you going to do?
Ask them to watch me.
Thank you. So like, hey, this is my first time doing it. Could you come watch me and make sure I'm doing this correctly? Does that make sense? So you want to do it? Sure. We want to do everything that we can. Okay. And so, yeah, can you come watch me do this? This is my first time doing it here. I just want to make sure I have a clear understanding. Okay. What must you do, though, if you need to refuse the task? Maybe it's not legal for you to do that. What should you do? You already know this answer because it was a test answer early yesterday.
No, I can't do that. I'm sorry.
Very good. That was a polite response, okay, or a polite refusal. So just say, you know, I'm not allowed to do that, or that's not within my scope of practice, or something like that. All right, chapter 5. I told you, chapter 4 isn't a long one, but chapter 5 was. So we might stop for a break. We'll just kind of see where we're at for chapter 6. So chapter 5 is all about ethics and laws, and then chapter 6 goes more into ethics, but more specifically with you as a CNA, and then kind of learning like how to resign from a job or get a job and so forth. Okay. So ethics and laws here. We're going to talk about assault, battery, tort, all this terminology, libel, slander, so forth. Okay, that are important, and this terminology and things are on your tests. Chapter 5, ethics and laws within CNA. You are there to serve and to protect the patients and the residents from harm. Okay. There are also things there to protect you from doing that. And so some of them include a Nurse Practice Act, your training and job description, safe delegation that we talked about before, and a complex set of rules and standards of conduct of behavior as well. Ethics itself is knowing, you know, like your moral, what is right and what is wrong is ethical, is what ethics mean. Okay, knowing what is right and wrong. An ethical person behaves and acts in the right way. An unethical person does not. Okay? Morals are involved. Morals are like your beliefs, your attitude, that form your own beliefs and so forth. It deals with choices or judgments about what should or should not be done. I'm going to instill my morals in you, unfortunately, because it is my beliefs. It's my beliefs and my morals. My main goal is that you treat every patient the same no matter what, right? We even talked about this last week, that I don't care if they have scabies crawling out of their skin. Now, I'm not going to want to put you in an unsafe situation, but we have to treat them the same as the sweet old lady next door, okay? And so, or the homeless patient that come in, and they come in every single day, they're requesting pain medication maybe, and they're really just hungry maybe even, okay? We have to treat them all the same, okay? So ethical behavior definitely involves not being prejudiced or biased, which means by not making judgments or having views before knowing the actual facts. Ethical problems involve making choices. So the coworker is drinking from a cup and it smells of alcohol, and she says, "Don't tell anyone." Or a resident has a bruise on their body and she told the nurse that she fell, and you know otherwise. So those would both put you in a kind of a bad ethical dilemma that you're going to need to report. You're going to need to be a tattletale in those situations. So professional groups also have code of ethics as well. There's the American Nurses Association, the LPN Association for the same, that have code of ethics for RNs and LPNs. Professional boundaries. Boundaries in general, okay? Professional boundaries kind of separate helpful behaviors versus behaviors that are not helpful at all. So the following can occur when you're over-involved or under-involved with a patient or person. If you're crossing a boundary, it's just a brief act or behavior outside of the helpful zone. Okay. The intent of the act or behavior is to meet the patient's needs, but, for example, If you give a person a hug, does it meet their needs or yours? Okay. Now, a boundary violation, that was boundary crossing. A boundary violation is where the act or behavior meets your needs and does not meet the person's needs, but even could be abuse, could be giving too much information about yourself, or keeping secrets from the patient as well. That's going to be a boundary violation. There's also professional sexual misconduct, which is an act or behavior comment that's sexual in nature. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. The boundary crossing, I'm going to be really honest with you. I struggle a little bit as a teacher because I grew up, my family, one side of my family, I would say, was like super huggy. Like, just hug when we see each other. All right? You know what I'm saying? And so I struggle a little bit, but I've worked on this over the years that, if I could just hug each one of you every day, it would just, I don't know, make me feel better. Because I'm like, oh man, I just know if I'm that one person every day that could give them a hug. Does that make sense? But not everybody likes hugs, and I know that. As a professional, not even over the last years of being a teacher and so forth. But I will struggle not giving you a hug on the last day, forewarning, okay? Because I'm like, oh my God, you're going into the world, I might never see you again, okay?
I'm even like a big, it's more of who you are.
Right.
I feel like, if I know you, I'm okay with hugging you, but if I don't know you, you are.
But really, I do understand that it is crossing a boundary with students. With some students that it makes super uncomfortable, and I get that. I totally do. So I respect you in the same aspect that I'm a hugger and you're possibly not. And it's not even that you're possibly not, it's just that, whoa, I'm just not used to that. Does that make sense? So I totally respect that. But that's like an example of a possibility. Does that make sense? So please be careful with that, and so forth. Boundary signs are going to be acts or behaviors or thoughts that warn of a boundary crossing, so be alert to signs. Some violations may, and some types of sexual misconduct are also major crimes. So this is kind of showing a little picture here that's from your book about under-involved, patient-centered care versus over-involved. So under-involved, they're going to show no interest in the patients, avoidance and neglect to the patients, which are also crimes, okay? Where over-involved, you have those boundary crossings, the violations, and the sexual misconduct, and so forth. So you got to find that middle ground, right? Where you're just doing patient-centered care, but it doesn't seem too far, but it's definitely not neglect either, and ignoring the patient. Ethics, we said at the beginning, is right or wrong, what you should do or not do. Laws. Laws tell you very clearly, but not clearly to me, because I'm not into laws, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a history teacher, right? They tell you what you can and cannot do. Okay? A law is typically made like a rule from a governing body like the state or the federal law or so forth. A criminal usually has general offenses that are against the public and society, where a civil law is going to be concerned with relationships between people involved in contracts and nursing practice. Say, for example, like a patient or person, a worker, let's say, found guilty of breaking a civil law, usually has to pay a sum of money to an injured person. So civil law, think, I'm suing you for this, okay? Like a sum of money. When you think about people suing people, you think about that's civil law. The word tort means simply wrong. It's not okay. Okay? A wrong committed person or against a person or their own property is a tort. So it is part of civil law. There's unintentional tort and intentional tort. So it's very common sense here. Unintentional tort was harm was not intended ever. Like that was not the intention at all. Intentional where it was definitely intentional, and you can prove that the person did that to harm someone. Unintentional tort is also kind of clearly defined under negligence. So the negligent person did not act in a reasonable or careful manner. Okay? The person's property or the person themselves were harmed, or the person failed to do what was reasonable and a careful person would have done. So also malpractice goes even further, that it's negligence by a professional person. So malpractice is things like, ooh, I just did surgery on your right shoulder, but I was really supposed to do it on your left shoulder. That's negligence and malpractice, okay? Because you were educated to check the sites beforehand and to do a double check, right? So they were educated to do that, but they were negligent in the fact of following through with that order. So there's that. All right, an intentional tort. So these are going to be way more like crimes and so forth because they are intentional. You intended on doing harm when you did it. Okay? So the first word here is defamation. And this is a pretty serious thing. This is when you are injuring a person's name and reputation by making false statements. Included within defamation is libel and slander, and it's important to know the difference. Libel is when you write something. So if you write something on Snapchat, you know, in your text box, that would be libel. That's incorrect or wrong, okay? Or an email or text message. But if slander is saying spoken words, like I am, you know, like basically bullying, but in spoken words. So if you did a social media post, but you did a video of yourself saying it, a video of you saying it, that would be slander. But if you wrote it on Snapchat or Instagram or whatever, then it would be libel. Okay, so libel, writing, slander, orally, using words. Never ever make false statements about patients, residents, family members, coworkers, or any other person. Okay? So an example of defamation again here is implying or suggesting that a person is using drugs, saying a person is insane or mentally ill, or implying or suggesting that a person steals money from a different staff member. Back to neglect a little bit here. On top of just regular neglect, like you're not providing the patient with normal things like food, water, clothing, and so forth, is also self-neglect. Okay? And self-neglect kind of looks like weight loss, poor hygiene, skin rashes, sign of confusion, because they are doing behaviors that threaten their own health. Okay? Some other terms here that are very, very important. I want to skip down just a little bit and then come back up. Is assault and battery. Does anyone know the difference in between assault and battery? A lot of people end up getting charged legally with both. But yeah, go ahead, Javan.
I thought assault was like threatening to do it, and battery is like you actually do it.
Good. So she said the exact terms. So assault is the threat. Battery is the doing. So I can threat. I said, I'm going to punch my husband. Okay, that's an assault. Battery and abuse, yes. But battery would be me punching my husband, right? So that's the difference. Assault is threatening to do it. Battery is doing it. And a lot of people get charged with assault and battery. Okay, both.
Say it and do it.
Because then they say it, then they do it. So there's that. So if you wrote it, or if you said it, either way. Okay? So know the difference in between assault and battery for sure for your test as well. There's also something called false imprisonment. Okay? This is where the patient is restrained in some kind of way or restricted where they cannot move. Okay? So they're put in one of those beds that's like a pediatric bed, but they're an adult that they can't get out of. Okay? False imprisonment. They have invasion of privacy, which is huge. So like HIPAA laws and so forth could be broken as well. I thought that was Mr. Spinster with the broom there. Private affairs, this is where private affairs are exposed, whether it's your fellow employee or it's your patient. Okay? It's never okay. Never okay. So also that HIPAA, so HIPAA is Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, and we will be talking about that throughout the year and have some HIPAA training at one point before we go to clinical as well. So what that means is that it started out as more of an insurance thing that they wouldn't share personal information just across the board with anyone without your consent, but it went into this much bigger thing, and we even have HIPAA and a lot more than just health insurance roles now as well. So
Don't mind me.
so HIPAA is very, very important. And then the next thing that we move on to here with these legal aspects is going to be fraud. Fraud is telling a person or family that you're a nurse, or like putting the wrong information on a job application. Never a good idea, okay? That you are a certified teacher and you've never been certified, okay? That's untrue. That's fraud. Okay? I think you all probably have a good understanding of that. Assault, we talked about that, assault and battery and the difference. Know that for sure for the test. Consent. So we have to have patient consent for everything. But it's also an important factor when a person's getting charged with assault and battery, because someone could have gave them the consent to do something at the beginning, but then the actual person has the right to withdraw that consent at any point. I don't know if you guys know that, but they do. So even though they gave consent an hour ago, they can still change that consent even during, okay? Then that would have to be stopped at that time, whatever it was, the procedure or the, whatever, it can be withdrawn at any point. So, these things are huge. So informed consent. Informed consent is really like a paper that typically the doctor or nurse has you sign before they would do a procedure. It needs to explain the reason for the treatment of the procedure or care measure, what will be done, how it will be done, who will do it, the expected outcomes, the possible side effects, and any other things that might possibly have to be done if they got in and this happened, okay? So that's going to be informed consent when it's written down, it's the patient signs it or the patient representative if they're incompetent or a minor as well. Let's go back up here and talk about invasion of privacy a little bit more. I think you guys probably all understand invasion of privacy. If someone violates your name, your photo, your private affairs, or exposes it to the public without consent, then that's going to be invasion of privacy. The example here of privacy is going to be pulling that curtain around. Some of our facilities, we're going to have patient rooms where it's not private, right? And so the number one thing that you can do is pull that privacy curtain. But even when you have a room that is private, it's important when you're doing care to go ahead and pull that privacy curtain, because as well as I taught you last year that you need to knock and then wait, how many people really do that? Okay, how many nurses, doctors, whatever? Okay, so I have this thing where I'm like, knock, walk, right?
Yeah, that's what they do.
Okay, so, and I made it very clear with my teenage children, like, I might not even knock. I'll try, but I'm knocking and walking. That's the rule here in this house, okay? So, I know sometimes there's some things I don't want to see, all right? But anyways, this is just a policy, but really we should do that. But the privacy curtain in healthcare really helps with that as well, because you could really, if you open that door and you didn't have the privacy curtain pulled, you could really see a lot that you didn't intend to at all. A will, a living will. This is a legal document of how a patient wants their property distributed after death. You actually, as a CNA, can be a witness for this. Do I recommend it as a student CNA? I do not. Okay, but you legally, as a CNA, can witness the signing of a will. You can be one of the witnesses. What's up? Well, because I just don't know that, like, you might feel comfortable with it, but you might not. Like, if you don't know the patient well enough, then I don't feel comfortable, because, like, how do I know that they just weren't being coerced? Because I don't really know the patients that well, because we're just barely there. You know what I'm saying? Like how do I know that elderly woman wasn't just talked to by her son for like the past 2 days that she should do this, and then she's saying she wants to do it, but I don't know. And then we just go in there and witness her saying it, and then we're supposed to sign it. I mean, that's true, but so I take it a little bit more into account, because I know a lot of elderly people are taken advantage of by family, friends. So yeah, but they really are. So anyways, you do have the right to be a witness for a living will. You can also politely refuse to sign a will as well. Reporting abuse. There are different elements of abuse. There's the willful infliction of injury. There's unreasonable confinement. There's intimidation, so using your voice or your body to make threats or force. To serve as punishment, to deprive the patient as well, and involuntary seclusion as well. Abuse is definitely a crime. It can happen anywhere, okay? At home, in a healthcare agency. All patients, whether they're elderly, a child, or a regular adult, need to be protected, okay? Including those that can't speak for themselves in a coma as well. The abuser, unfortunately, is usually a family member or a caregiver. Both women and men are abusers, and both men and women are abused. Many states, with accrediting agencies and OBRA, do not allow agencies to employ patients that have any past history of abuse, neglect, or mistreatment. Vulnerable adults. Vulnerable adults are patients that are 18 years or older who have disabilities or conditions that make them at risk to be wounded, attacked, or damaged. They have problems caring for and protecting themselves to a mental, emotional, physical disability. Maybe they have brain damage, or maybe they have changes from aging as well. They are very vulnerable to abuse. Easy for people to do it too. Elder abuse, this is any knowing and intentional doing on purpose or negligent act by caregiver that's to an older adult. Forms of elder abuse include physical, neglect, verbal, involuntary seclusion, emotional, mental abuse, sexual abuse, abandonment, and then financial exploitation. That happens a lot, which means that they are getting taken advantage of financially. There are federal and state laws that require the reporting of elder abuse, and you should do that. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. Signs of elder abuse, there's a picture up here on the board. There's some pressure injuries, some scars, some skin tears there, some burns, some bruises. Guess what, though? Guess what? Don't think that every patient that you see that's elderly, if they have a skin tear in their arm, that they're being abused. One of my step-grandmother, she has skin tears nonstop. I swear she's had them for at least 10 or 15 years. Like, her skin just tears easily. Okay, and she bruises, like she's on blood thinners and stuff like that. So you also kind of have to know the situation. But you should always take that into play and to report to the nurse, like, hey, this patient has a lot of bruises on it. And they'll be like, yeah, she's on blood thinners, and, you know, she fell last week, and so she still kind of got some bruises lingering from that. Okay, so that it's just fine to report to the nurse and so forth, and very important as well. You're being observant. Child abuse, of course. A child is 18 years or younger. It could be any recent act or failure to act on part of the parent or the caregiver at all. Of course, this can be this act can result in death, serious physical or emotional harm, sexual abuse, or exploitation. And the act of failure to act presents a likely or immediate risk for harm. Unfortunately, when I worked Children's Hospital for so many years, we saw cases of abuse every day. The very first time I saw abuse, I was blown out of my mind. Blown out of my mind, meaning I saw this in nursing school. I was at Children's Mercy, which is downtown KC, and I was in the burn unit, which I hated. Okay, burn unit in a children's hospital, awful. Guys, if it's your cup of tea, please do it. But I guess their abuse cases were like the majority of their patients with burns. Never would have imagined this. Okay? Wasn't really talked to about it, even in nursing school. So, like, parents would report that the pot on the stove accidentally fell. Is that something that can really happen? Heck yeah, right? Like, the child reaches up for the burning boiled water, that could happen. Okay. Yeah, it really, I mean, I could foresee it happening with my kids any moment, you know? So it's real, but then there's so many abuse cases with an excuse like that, okay? But then it was actually intentional. So most of the time how we catch those people is the child story and the parent story, or maybe both of the parent story is way different. I don't mean just a little bit, but way different, okay? So burns, a lot of burn patients that come in, especially children, are actually abused and so forth, okay? But within children and any patient, there can also be, like, sexual abuse can include rape or sexual assault, molestation, incest, child pornography, child prostitution. There also can be that physical abuse of the burning, biting, choking, force feeding, hitting, pinching, shaking, restraint, striking, blah, blah, blah. And there can be emotional abuse. My kids probably say that they have that from me from screaming at them, but you guys don't think I scream, do you?
No, okay, but you're probably different around here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and like different kids
But
need
my
different
dad screams
things.
all the time.
Oh yeah,
Because literally he doesn't know how to talk.
yeah. My older kids, and then like my parents, they never screamed at us. Like, it was not their parenting style. Blah blah. They just they
it's
didn't.
the total opposite.
But then like my husband and I, neither one of us are screamers, but twins just
That's
change
the
your
only way
life.
you
Twins
listen.
change your life. Okay.
That's the only way
Yeah.
they listen sometimes.
Yeah, twins that are
Oh,
5,
yeah.
but the
How do you-
twos, the
one of them
twos.
runs around here every now and then. That's
Yeah,
true.
the
Oh,
twos
yeah.
got pretty hard, and the
And
screaming
because
started.
she was sick until
Oh,
she
yeah.
got here, then she
Oh,
was
yeah.
a lot better.
Oh yeah, sometimes that happens. Yeah. So you randomly, if you have to see my kids, yeah, expect them to be all over here, even though they're 5. But yeah, my younger ones. So anyways, yeah. So but it really can. Don't think that your parents are abusing you just because they're screaming at you. Okay, that's also normal parenting behavior. Try being a parent. Okay,
Okay, but
I'm not telling you guys to start
literally,
picking
that's the only
things.
way they listen. Like,
Yeah.
when babysitting and stuff, like, I have to scream and they don't listen.
Right, exactly. So please don't think that your parents are necessarily abusing you just because I said in a lecture today that that's emotional abuse. That's not what I'm saying. Okay, it's not what I'm saying. Substance abuse with children is huge too. Okay, like providing the children drugs or maybe giving them drugs. Okay, scary as heck. But it happens, like, a lot. Like, my older kids' friends were getting drugs or from their parents, you know, stuff like that, or being gay. I don't know. It's scary. So, what were you going to say, Colton? Okay. So it does happen. Abandonment is going to be deserting or leaving a vulnerable adult alone without someone being responsible for their care. If you did that, you definitely can lose your certification as well. You're going to report any behaviors in the adult or the child's body or behavior. You know, a child that may fear adults, the child that may be quiet withdrawn, a child that behaviors may signal a problem. Sudden behavior changes, so not things that are consistently going on, things like bedwetting, thumb sucking, loss of appetite, poor grades, and running away can be some of them. How to report abuse for elderly victims. I know this is like a workbook question a little bit, so I'll talk about it again. Report to the administrator, okay, is the first initial answer. There's like 4 correct answers on that one, but report to the administrator is going to be the top answer. All claims of abuse need to be investigated, and investigated results must be reported within 5 days of the incident. Seems like a long time to me, but they got to really do a clear investigation. Okay. Child abuse can be complex. There's usually different stories about what's happened. They have frequent emergency room visits, and all states require the reporting of suspected child abuse to anyone. The main thing with reporting it is give as much detail as you can. Okay. There are abuse hotlines for everything. Okay. Also, intimate partners can abuse or occur in relationships. One partner has the power or control over another through abuse. It could be physical, sexual, verbal, economic, or social. What does economic mean? Economic abuse. It is money, Jasmine. And so it could mean like they have some kind of power over you that they're not just asking you for money, but they're demanding it, okay, in an abusive way, okay, or they're demanding money for just anything. Okay. So, usually though, in these type of situations and relationships, there's normally more than one type of abuse happening. But patients and residents can suffer from domestic abuse, and there are different state laws about reporting it. But please report it. If you suspect any domestic abuse, it is your job to share the concerns with the nurse. All right, this was the longest one I told you, and this is the last slide. A resident in your nursing center asks you to bring your children to visit, your own children to visit. How will you respond?
I don't have children.
Okay, I don't have children, that's a good response.
Say the question is?
A resident in your nursing center asks you to bring your children to visit. How will you
They're
respond?
They can't come in when they
It
say
depends what's the,
they're busy.
So this is more that boundary crossing thing, okay? So it would be like,
how close.
you know, it's not okay if I bring my kids in here, or kind of thing.
Like it's
But-
against the rules.
Yeah, or if it's against the rules. But it needs to be truthful. It needs to be truthful or the facts. Like, and if you know there is a chance that your kid may be there sometime, be like, well, you know, you may randomly see them, like my kids, okay? Kind of thing. Now, I don't want my kid in here sick and making the rest of you guys sick, just like your parents, you know, kind of thing. But the truth is, you know, if it's not going to harm the patient or whatever, then you may see them. But it's not okay if, like, the resident asks you, bring your kids in, I want to see them. That's kind of crossing that professional boundary line.
At the nursing home when I was burying it, one of the workers' sons is like he like plays music there,
Yeah.
and they always talk about him. And they're always like, bring him in, bring him in.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So how do professional boundaries protect the patient or the person as well? I mean, just keeping those are really, really helpful to never put yourself in that situation. Okay? All right, so I want you guys to take a break. I want you to come back at 15 after. That gives you 12 minutes, and we will finish lecture chapter 6. It is not as long as chapter 5.
Can you get my phone?
And I need to pause this real quick. Hopefully I can pause it. Oh, I can. Okay, so chapter 6, student work and ethics. This has to do with getting a job, resigning from a job, and so forth. Just kind of proper behaviors on these things, okay? So professionalism. Professionalism involves following laws, being ethical, having good work ethics, and having the skills to do your work. Work ethics deal with the behavior in your workplace only, not like your personal life and so forth. So ethics could also involve like how you look. Are you professional? What do you say? How do you behave? How you treat others? And do you work well with other people? Your health is very, very important to your professionalism, your hygiene, and your appearance, okay? So you need a balanced diet. Most adults need about 7 hours of sleep a day. You need to use your muscles correctly, meaning bending at the knees, not bending over on your back and hurting your back. Also, exercise is needed for muscle tone and circulation and weight loss. Having your eyes checked to make sure see if you need glasses or contacts. Knowing and being aware that smoking causes lung, heart, and circulatory disorders. Also, we've already mentioned this today, taking only drugs ordered by a doctor in the prescribed way. And then you should never report to work under the influence of alcohol or drugs. So this page here talks about the good work ethics, the positive things and qualities and traits of a good, positive employee. So they should be caring, cheerful, conscientious, so that means like aware of others, considerate, cooperative, courteous, dependable, have empathy, be enthusiastic, honest, patient, respectful, self-aware, and trustworthy. You must be self-aware, know your own feelings on things before you can really judge people on their other parts. Okay? So you really need to definitely have that. Your personal hygiene is important. It's also important for clinical as well. I feel like sometimes I should be talking to the shop boys, just saying. I shouldn't say that out loud. But bathing daily is going to be important.
I don't know how we're on that. We had this conversation last night at dinner. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how they're black. Like, they're just
Dirty.
jet black dirty. And you're like, how do you end up this way?
I don't know either, because it's definitely not any of my students.
And you're
I
like,
don't,
did you wash? Yeah! You're like,
yeah, if you wash your hands multiple times a day, how does that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Using deodorant and antiperspirant, brushing your teeth often, using mouthwash, shampooing often, keeping fingernails clean and short and neatly shaped. Menstrual hygiene is important as well. And then any foot care. I'm going to be truly honest with you, real quick, a little story. I had a young lady, I felt so bad for her, but we experienced it over a 2-year period. She had the worst smelling shoes I have ever smelled. Like, just bad.
Okay, some people got some stinky.
Yeah, so foot odor is very important. And we really had to speak up to her, especially before we got to clinical, because it was like, not just like
don't pull her aside.
Could you like
minor.
smell it through her shoes?
I could smell it sitting up there, and she could be back where you were.
Oh, like it wasn't like her taking her shoes off. You could
No.
smell, like, you could smell. Oh,
Mhm.
You want me to do them at the same time, or you want them separately?
No, we can do them. We're good. I'm good. With yeah, same time. So
You want us to walk in there?
no, she's just staying right there.
Also, I ate this freeze-dried candy Jeff was all excited
Oh my
about.
gosh, what kind?
I don't know, it was sour.
Oh, well, I tried
Skittles?
freeze-dried Skittles and gummy bears the other day, and they're so good.
It wasn't that, I think it was like like those sour
Sour
long
Patch
is this?
Kids?
No, the
The
tart.
sour.
It was like-
Oh,
How long
sweet
is this?
tart.
Yes, sweet tart, thank you.
We're almost done.
I don't know my candy terminology.
See, I'm diabetic, but I know every single candy.
Okay, I'm
How
gonna
many
talk
more
to you
does it
guys
have?
between the wall here.
All right, Miss
because-
Williams talking.
I'm gonna talk to you guys between the wall here because I just don't feel like making you guys move, and I'm only gonna talk to you for like less than 2 minutes. So, again, this is Williams. I keep showing up like a bad penny. I apologize for that. First couple weeks were crazy. Right now, I'm talking to you as the Skills USA advisor for our school. Now, so the crazy thing is, people are like, what is Skills USA? To be honest, when I started here, I didn't know. So Skills USA is essentially like SFA, okay? So we all know what that is. We live in a rural community. That's your ag world, right? Skills USA is targeting the industry world, okay? So in ag, besides veterinarian, right, there's nowhere for health science, okay? In skills, you can compete in health sciences, okay? In any kind of spec of the job that you can think of, all right? So my job is not to teach you health science. I know nothing about it, okay? My job is to get you involved in the program, get you excited about the program, and to help you guys move on in competitions and get you involved at the local level. Now, I had some kids in the other class like, I don't really want to compete, I'm shy, or I don't feel confident enough at this point as a junior, but I want to be in skills, right? That's fine. If you want to pay the $20 dues, which it's 20, we front the other 10, because it's actually 30 this year. I didn't want to pay the dues, you're in the organization. You get a card, instead it's nationally recognized as being we have to have a Skills USA program to be an accredited CTE school, okay? So this isn't just because Hannah thinks it's fun, we're doing this because it's important for our school, and it's important for you guys. We compete at the district level, the state level, that's at Lynn Tech, or State Tech in Lynn, and then even at the national level. This past year, Ethan Ryan of Troy placed fifth, I think it was fifth. So we were really excited for that. He got to go to Atlanta, Georgia for a whole week, enjoy all the big conferences, conventions, showcases, got put up in a hotel with his family, and got to, go up on stage and smile. Okay, so he had a good time. Mr. Irving went with him. I did not go. The other thing is, well, what does this mean for me at Pike Lincoln? Here, I'm not going to take any of your nights and weekends. I know those are full of sports, jobs, family, right, other clubs. We will go on field trips and things like that. The only time I would take you out of school in the evening is if you go to contests and we're traveling, okay, and staying in a hotel. Otherwise, I'm not going to take any of your time because I don't want to be here in the evening, okay? We will do fun things at the end of the year. Last year, I took a whole busload of kids paintballing. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. Apparently me. It was hilarious. They had a great time. I sat on the sideline with the first aid kit, like sweating and nervous, but nobody got hurt. Just one Band-Aid got issued. That was it. But that is something you guys can do if you're involved, compete, an officer or class representative. Okay? I opened it up for anybody in the school to go, but I want that to be a reward for those students that are involved. Okay? We'll also do cookouts, grilling, game days. We're working on getting some like little sports competitions, brackets going. That's Aaron's fault because he loves contests. So and the other thing is it's a student-led organization. I let you guys choose what you want to do. Paintballing was not my idea. That was the student's idea. I'm just the one who has the money through skills to make it happen. Okay? So the other thing is I know you guys have HOSA and you haven't quite learned about that yet. We also have FBLA in the building as well. I encourage you to be in more than one. Okay? There is nothing that says you cannot be more than one. And like I said, I am never going to compete with HOSA. I will never do something at the same time or FBLA. We all work together to make sure they don't conflict so you guys can enjoy all the organizations. Okay? And we've had several kids do that. So I just threw a lot of information your way. I've done this like 27 times today, I feel like. So do you guys have any questions for me right now? No. The good news is my office is right there. So if you have any questions or want to join, you just pay Miss Montana and she will let you know that you paid your dues. Other than that, I'll let you get back to class. So
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Williams.
You clap.
Yeah.
Good
speech. Oh,
That's
gosh.
okay. Tim gave me a chair to stand on because like they were all standing around me and I was like, hello, I can't see. They like gave me a chair.
That's
I was
awesome.
like, I'm so short. So
That's awesome.
okay.
You can breathe.
All that. Yeah.
All right, so back to chapter 6, and we'll be wrapping up here. Professional appearance. So we just talked about bad shoe odors, and so forth. Please just be aware. I have not smelled that. I will tell you. I will be honest with you, mainly because, like, yeah, I just want you to know. Okay. So professional appearance also includes practicing good hygiene, being appropriate with your uniform, so not a lot of wrinkles, but I understand a wrinkle here or there. But having your name badge on, I have a picture coming up with a photo ID on the chest, not below the waist where we think it's cool to put it. Covering any tattoos that are on our lower part of our arms. Wearing only allowed jewelry, which is like jewelry at a minimum. Keeping hair pulled back if it's below the shoulders. Keeping your nails short and clean, and no artificial nails or chipped nails. Another thing is, like, a lot of perfume, cologne, and aftershave should not be put on, because it really makes the patients like go berserk with their allergies and so forth. But wear deodorant, yep, even if it's a flavor, which I don't know. Flavor. I said the wrong word there, but scent. Even if it's a scent, please wear it, because I think most deodorants have a scent. So this is how a nurse assistant should dress. You can see where the ID badge is placed. The wristwatch is not essential anymore because almost every patient room has a clock in it, and so forth. Okay, pretty clear. Keeping your job, preparing for work in general, not just for this class. You must work when you're scheduled. You should get to work on time, if not 5 minutes early or 10 minutes early. You should stay for your entire shift. Common reasons for losing a job are absences or tardiness, childcare issues, and transportation concerns as well. If you ever get to where you need childcare, you should know when you leave for work. While you're at work, you should have a plan, or before you get home from work, and then during emergencies as well. Transportation, you should always have a backup plan for getting to work. If you have a flat tire, if your car doesn't start, and so forth. Teamwork itself is always helpful in a workplace. That includes working when you're scheduled, being cheerful and friendly, performing delegated tasks, and being available to help others. Attendance when reporting to work when you're scheduled and the time frame is very, very, very important. This is our biggest thing with Mr. Spooner's been talking to the public this summer. It's like, we just need people to show up. We just need them to show up. And once we get them here, we can get them, going. But anyways, we just need them to show up and be here on time. So be ready to work when your shift starts, not still getting ready and so forth. Attendance also means staying for the entire shift. You may have to work overtime. And then when it is time to leave, report, specifically in CNA, report to the off-duty nurse before leaving. Keeping a job is very important for you to have a good attitude. Show that you enjoy your work, maybe even if you don't. Okay. Listen to others. Be willing to learn. Stay busy and use your time well. Always think before you speak, and do not say, "That's not my resident. I can't. I'm too busy." Okay? One of the things is, you guys as a CNA student, is I really should never see you sitting down. To be truly honest, you're only there for 2.5 hours. I should not see you sitting down. Sometimes the students are encouraged to sit down, but if it is, it's only by that direct staff member, because then the other staff members sit and they're like, they're not supposed to be sitting down too, because that's what's been asked and so forth. Really trying to keep yourself busy, finding something else to do and so forth. So now if they tell you to sit down with them and they're discussing something with you, they're having interaction with you, please do so. Don't be disrespectful and take that. But otherwise, you should not be sitting down during clinical. Avoid gossip. Remove yourself from the setting where gossip is going on. Do not make or repeat any comment that would hurt others. This could get you into trouble legally, and you're just thinking that you're not doing any harm. Okay? So to gossip itself means to spread rumors or talk about private matters of others, and it is very unprofessional and hurtful. Confidentiality is huge.
That was like the biggest thing.
Hmm?
That was like the biggest thing they did last year.
Really, gossiping? Yeah. Let's stop it.
I
Okay?
mean, it added to the fun, but.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Sorry.
The patient's information is shared only among the staff involved in their care, so not even all the staff know about that direct patient. The patient and you as an employee also have the right to privacy and confidentiality as well. And so share only information with the nurse. Even if there's a visitor in the room, we can't share information with them. They're like, what's going on with this patient? Just because it looks like a visitor, they may be lying to you that it's their wife, it's really not. It's some kind of stranger that comes in and visits them. You cannot share everything. You need to go to the nurse, and then they can share the information about the patient. Important personal characteristics or your speech and language need to be professional. I'm going to be real honest with you. Some students last year got in trouble for this, okay, with not being professional, with not speaking real clearly or arguing with staff, and they're not back this year. Okay? Do not swear, shout, or yell. The smallest kindness act can really brighten someone's day. Personal matters, do not discuss them at work. They can really interfere with the job, and you could lose your job for tending to personal matters while at work. On meal and break times, if you get them, you are scheduled so that some other staff are on the unit. We can't just abandon the staff, and we just can't shut down the place, okay, for your meal and break time. So you have to make sure that someone's covering you, and so forth. You should leave for and return to breaks on time. You should tell the nurse when you leave and return to the unit. And job safety. Safety is everyone's responsibility, not just your employers to keep you safe, but yours as well. You must also protect the patients, the families, the visitors, coworkers, and yourself from harm at all times. With planning your workday, you should use priority setting. What has the greatest impact? What do you have to do first? What task needs to be done in a set time? What tasks do need to be done by the end of your shift? How much time it takes to do each task, and who you can help and when. If you do this and then you give safe and thorough care, then you're going to be making use of your good time and you're going to be a great employee. Stress is normal. Managing stress is important. We all have stress. Our stressors are just different. Okay? Stressors can be pleasant or even unpleasant. They can be mental, social, physical, and then it affects those people as well, and spiritual as well. So a stressor is the thing that causes the stress. Okay, the event or factor that causes the stress. And there are many parts of your job that are stressful, honestly. Okay. Prolonged or frequent stress can cause physical and mental health problems to occur as well. But learning how to deal with the stress in your own way is going to be very important. Stress can affect you, the care you give, the person's quality of life, and how you relate to coworkers. Some ways to reduce or cope with stress are going to be exercising, getting enough rest and sleep, eating healthy, giving yourself praise, having a sense of humor, plan personal and quiet time for yourself, use common sense about what you can do, doing one thing at a time, and then do not judge yourself harshly because this is what we all do so hard on ourselves. Okay? Dealing with conflict. Guess what? Conflict happens. It's real. Okay? Differences between each other lead to conflict. It can arise mainly at a workplace over work schedules, absences, the amount and quality of work performed. So how would you handle this situation? I heard you tell Sam that I was sitting in the residence room. You seemed angry when you said it. Or we were late for class 2 times this week when you drove. Right? Maybe handle that situation, I'll just tell you, and maybe wording it a little bit nicer, respectfully, but also pointing to the facts is okay. Right? Real facts are okay. Resolving a conflict, you have to figure out what the problem is, collect information and data about it, identify possible solutions of ways to fix it, select the best solution, carry out the solution, and then evaluate and see if it was the right one. If not, try a different way. Burnout can happen easily. Okay? You must guard yourself from burnout. You are being physically and mentally exhausted when you have burnout. You're having doubts. You start to have doubts about your abilities, and then you have doubts about the value of your work as well. Harassment. It can be sexual. It can be a lot of different forms. But it can mean trouble, torment. It can worry a person by one's behaviors or comments. You should not offend others by your gestures, remarks, or use of touch. Do not offend others with jokes or comments or photos or pictures as well. And sexual harassment. Harassment in general is not legal in the workplace or anywhere, right? But sexual harassment involves unwanted sexual behaviors by another person. The victims can be either men or women. Men can harass women or men, and women can harass men or women. Okay? If you feel that you're being harassed, report the matter to the nurse or the human resources office. You should be careful about what you say or do. Okay? A lot of employee orientation at the beginning. You have to do some kind of sexual harassment training. I know I do as an employee. Every place I've ever worked, I have to do some kind of sexual harassment training on a video or something and do a quiz. So I have to do it every year from this job. Resigning from a job, whatever the reason you're having to quit or you need to resign from a job, you should communicate to the employer. You should give a written notice, and it should be at least 2 weeks is the normal. So some jobs, nursing jobs, honestly, it's like a 6 to 8 week period that you should give them. But the minimum is always a 2 weeks written notice. Okay? Do not walk out on a job. Okay? Some of those people, maybe future employers somewhere else, even if it started off at McDonald's, you walked out, and then all of a sudden you're wanting a job at Mercy Hospital, and they're like, oh, the human resource person is the same person that you just walked out on at McDonald's, okay, years later. They remember things, and also one thing, it just leaves you in a much better place. Even if you're not happy at all or something really, really bad happened, you need to give them a 2 week notice. Sometimes they will just say, okay, you did the formal 2 week notice, thank you, but you can go ahead and leave and not come back even for that 2 weeks, okay? But leave that part on them, all right? Also, an exit interview is a common practice. That's where they say, what worked, what didn't. It's typically like a survey and so forth. Losing a job. To practice, to protect your job, you should function at your best at all times. Always practice good work ethics. Also, drug testing can be common at workplaces. Drug and alcohol use affects the patients, residents, and staff safety. If they think any employee in healthcare, any employee is under the influence at any time, they can ask for random drug tests right on the spot. And so you should review your agency's policy for when and how you might be tested. Unethical student behavior when you're there for CNA. Your school, we will have a code of conduct in our PLTC handbook, and the health sciences one as well. Violating the code of conduct is unethical behavior, and violations may result from dismissing you from the program for CNA, issuing you a failing grade, and not recommending that you take the written or skills test. So not only not getting those good grades and so forth are important, but also if we see too many unethical behaviors during clinical time, we can ask that you are not eligible to take that state and written test. Last slide here. A coworker did not show up for work. You and other staff members now have extra work. How do you respond?
Do the work.
Do the work. Yep, just suck it up, buttercup, just do it. Everybody's gotta be.
done faster you're out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you just do it, okay? Try not to complain about it. I know it's not making it easy, but just be a team player here. Plan and absolutely. That's real. Plan and prioritize your day and manage the extra work. Okay, split it between a team. You gotta suck it up, okay? Everybody gets sick. Now, when it really starts to bother you is when it's a consistent call-in and little mister's over here laying in bed with his girlfriend on social media, but you just called in, buddy. What's going on? That's when it really bothers people. I'll be truly honest with you, okay? I have students in the past, or kids, you know, like, well, yeah, sick from school, so sick that they're out golfing, okay? But, so, let's be smart with our social medias, too. If you're sick, you're sick, okay? If you're pretending, you're sick. You're not posting to social media. Let's be real, all right? Not even the fake. I'm sick, okay? But don't do the lie either, all right? Just keep it to yourself. Man, employers hit that hard. They have people hired to be watching social media accounts, okay? Like Pike County Memorial, they don't have a person hired within their building. They have a company that they use to look at social media accounts before people are hired, while people are hired, because they have to, not because they want to. Okay? Because legally they have to, because they're watching for patient confidentiality to be broke. Okay? So they have to do that. They're mandated by federal laws to do that. So just an FYI. All right. That is the end of chapter 6. So this will be all the information that is on test 2.